Hello there. Hopefully I'm live. Can somebody in the chat let me know if I'm live and that you can see me and hear me? And if you're on a phone, I believe the chat icon is in the top right. Hey, Manny. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, we've got a couple minutes until we get started, but I appreciate you guys who are here right now logging on. While we wait for everybody to join, if you don't mind, in the chat, can you just let us know what your biggest objective or takeaway you're hoping to get tonight is? What are you hoping to get out of this? I'll make sure that I want to make this personalized. It's not going to be a huge group of us, so I'm excited to chat with you guys and understand what you're looking for. And this is my first time using this software, so I'm really hoping the technology works the way that it's supposed to. I was having a conversation with a couple of friends earlier today, audiologists and consultants, and they were like talking about horror stories about technology failing and their internet going out. And I was like, guys, not today, please. But I'm sure it will be good. Awesome, Manny. So Manny has a mobile practice already and looking to expand. Is it just you, or do you have other people on your team? Welcome to people that are joining. Okay, cool. Awesome. How many are you going out to senior facilities? And if so, how many are you going to right now? Keeping overhead the head low, I get that for sure. Let's see who I see in here. Elizabeth is here. Holly, Jeff, John, Manny, Melissa, Michael, Autumn. What's up, guys? I got some familiar names in here. Happy to have you guys in here. Oh, cool. All right. So Manny's going to 2 facilities right now. I'm going to give us just a couple of minutes. Hey, Autumn. How are you? Going to give us just a couple minutes for everybody to trickle in here. And before too long, we will jump in and get started. My goal for this evening is to give you guys a lot of value, whether you're already running a mobile practice or whether you are working at a clinic or you're running a brick and mortar practice or whatever your current situation is. I think that we're going to have good stuff to learn. Hey, Brandy. All right, cool. Still seeing a few more people jump in here, but I think it's time. We're here on time, so let's get started. So for those of you that don't already know me or I don't already know you, my name is Dr. Brad Stewart. I'm an audiologist. I'll talk a little bit more about myself in a few minutes. But for now, let's kind of get into this. You're probably here because you're interested in learning more about what's involved in running a mobile audiology practice, and maybe you have a practice now or you're thinking about expansion, or I know some of you are employees and you're considering striking out on your own, and maybe mobile would be a good way to do that. And we're definitely going to talk about those things, and I'm confident that you're going to learn a lot. And you might be cynical that it's going to be a big sales pitch for my program, and while I will be talking about my program and will give you opportunities to connect more deeply with me on my program, that's not my main objective tonight. Honestly, my kind of hidden agenda is that I want to give us a space to think a little bit more expansively about like why we do what we do for work and how we show up for our patients and our teams, and what can we do to create the impact and the income that we desire and that we deserve. There, does that sound like something you can get excited about? So if you stay till the end, I do have a little bonus for you. So make sure you stick around, and my software can tell me who stayed and who left, so I will know. It's kind of like a data logging in hearing aids. It's like your patients think they can get away with it, but they can't. All right, so this one, and this is going to be interactive. Again, this is a fairly small group, so I would like for you guys to get comfortable getting active in the chat. Hey, Holly. So to kick that off, just give me one answer here. Why do you practice audiology? If I had to drill it down to like 1 or 2 points, what's at the core of why you're in this field? Does it have something to do with helping? Does it fulfill some deeper need or desire for you? Give yourself an opportunity to be really honest here. Because if we understand like the deep why of behind our work, we can get more aligned to the type of work that we do every day. Alternatively, if we're just clocking in and clocking out and we never really investigate that deeper motivation, it becomes really easy to coast through our careers without a deep sense of fulfillment. And this is relevant for me because for me, working with business owners, I have a specific why. My why is that I'm a force multiplier for people and companies who do good work in the world. I think probably I'm an outlier in the field. I personally don't love patient care, but I've personally given myself the opportunity to use my love of business and strategy and sales and marketing and all the business stuff and inject that into the missions of people who truly care about creating impactful change in their patients' lives. So you can see, like, if you understand your why, you can shape your career around that. And you can be more deeply and fully aligned. And in my experience, if you're working in a way that's deeply and fully aligned with who you are and what's important to you, and that alignment also kind of lines up with the greater good, the money and all of that stuff just kind of inevitably follows. Curious what you guys are saying here. Helping others fulfill quality of life, improve their quality of life, solve problems. Yeah. Yeah, Melissa, I'm totally with you. I love solving problems. Probably that was my favorite part about practice was problem solving. Yeah, Manny, totally, totally. I totally get the sense of meaning from patient care. Awesome, Jeff. I love that. Anybody else, please feel free to share. Why do you do this? Like, what's the deep why? Because we're going to be talking about like how we create that impact inside of our practices and inside of the work that we do. All right, so here's where we are today, and this isn't news to anybody, but we are a lot more in a world of commoditization, price competition. We've got big box competitors, managed care, OTC. I'm sure it's why a lot of you are here tonight, is because it's like it kind of feels like our profession is becoming a commodity. And the thing that breaks my heart is with all these shifts, I see too many audiologists who want to have a genuine impact shrinking. We think that we have to compete on price, which ultimately either means cutting down on the care or it means sacrificing revenue in our practice, right? The problem is both of those ultimately aren't just bad for the practice, and they aren't just bad for the practice owner. They're bad for the community and the audiologist that the audiologist deserves to or desires to serve. I think the first one's obvious. If we're cutting down care to try to reduce price, obviously we're doing a disservice to our patients, right? But in the second case, reducing our practice revenue and our profit and how much money the practice owner makes, that might be less obvious. But if we think about it, like, what is revenue in a business? If a business is a vehicle to create impact and to help people, then revenue is just the gas. It's the fuel that lets that vehicle create that impact and change. And if we're running low on fuel, we're going to drive that vehicle conservatively, right? We're going to try to get to that next gas station without running out, or maybe we just run out, right? And so either way, we're limiting the impact that we can have in our communities. Plus, like, there's a psychological impact to reducing the amount of money that you charge, lowering your margins, decreasing your income. Like, subconsciously, when we do that, we're telling ourselves that we're not worthy. And that sense of guilt or unworthiness or doubt or however that shows up, it creeps into our interactions with our patients and with our team. So, it's really hard to feel empowered to create a dream practice for you and for your team and for your patients if you don't feel like you're able to charge what you're worth. And even if you don't realize it, it's true. And so what I hope that we can talk about tonight are some ways that you can charge what you're worth so that you can create the impact that you want to make. I want to read a couple more of these because I saw them coming in. Yeah, I love the mix. Building and creating new programs and helping fix a problem, helping patients, training students, getting creative. That's an entrepreneur right there, Rachel. Love that. Holly, offer positive impact on others as well as their families. Yeah, you guys are awesome. This is why I love audiologists and people in the hearing care field, because largely we're doing this because we want to help people, right? So we can help more people if we are able to do that in a profitable way. All right, I'm going to actually put up a poll here. So what's your current practice ownership status? Do you already own a brick and mortar? Do you own a mobile practice? Do you own a combination of the two, or are you not currently a practice owner? Go ahead and respond here and we'll see those pop up. Cool. So looks like right now majority is going to say not a practice owner. A few mobile practice owners. Awesome. And then one, who is my person that owns a brick and mortar and a hybrid? And a mobile? Cool. For those of you guys who already own practices, Jeff, hey Jeff, I would love to know what you're hoping to get out of this, because, you know, as mobile audiologists, we all do things a little bit differently and we can all learn from each other. All right, let's talk about what mobile audiology is, or at least in the sense of how I'm defining it around our talk tonight. Okay, because it can mean different things to different people. And I've seen and spoken with practice owners who have a wide range of services and service delivery models. It could mean having a converted trailer or a bus and having a traveling clinic that way. It could be a mobile APD program, pediatric, low income, hearing conservation. Those are all options, right? What we're going to be talking about tonight is what I consider to be the simplest, the lowest overhead, the highest margin, and the highest service concierge audiology model. This is the model that I personally experienced explosive growth and success with. It's what the professionals that are in my training program are deploying across the country today. It allows anybody from an existing brick and mortar practice to a new start, first-time practice owner to launch quickly a capital efficient, profitable, low risk, high return audiology practice. So generally we're talking about hearing loss treatment in patients' homes or senior living facilities, no trailer, just you, your equipment, your care, bringing best practice care into a convenient, high-touched, highly personalized, service-oriented delivery manner. So, and what that does is it differentiates us from the commodity-based practices, right? So I'm going to talk just a little bit about my story because I think it's relevant. This is the social media version. This is the version that sounds great. When I started my practice in 2014, we grew quickly. I hired audiologists. We quickly grew to servicing about 100 senior living facilities around Dallas. We crossed 7 figures of revenue in early 2017. We were on track. And then in 2021, I had a profitable exit. And now I do consulting around mobile practice and other things. So that's the social media version. Here's the real story. My actual experience as a mobile practice owner, especially in the beginning, was rough. At the beginning, I had no business experience. Luckily, I was smart enough or whatever that I decided to hire business coaches, and I was investing nearly $20,000 a year for the first 3 years of my practice on business coaches and business training. My second hire was a marketer. I hired somebody to go out to senior living facilities and market for us, and it was horrible. I think she was on the team for 12 weeks and actually worked for 6 of them. And when I let her go, she threatened me with a age discrimination lawsuit, and I had to settle a lawsuit out of court. And this is like 5 months into practice ownership. So super traumatizing. I overpaid support staff. Like my first support staff was a client care specialist. We called her an office manager. She was a client care specialist. She was making like $60,000 a year in 2014. Overhired audiologists too quickly. We undercharged for services. I specifically remember this like crystallizing moment of clarity when I did a round trip to to help this woman with her new hearing aids that she'd purchased. And it was a 1.5 hour round trip drive. And I got there and it was just a wax garden. And that was like light bulb, like, okay, this is not sustainable. I had had another experience where so I did the entire consultation with this guy. It was in an assisted living facility. It was actually in an independent living facility. And went through the entire consultation, demoed, purchase agreement, went to take the deposit. He's like, I got to call my son to do the deposit. Okay. Call the son, and he puts him on speakerphone, and the son's like, Dad, you bought hearing aids last week. Okay. That was an experience. I had another woman, probably within 3 months of that guy, who at an assisted facility, she seemed very with it, moved forward with hearing aids. And then that evening, I get a call from her son, who's an attorney, who ranted for 45 minutes about what a con artist I was for ripping off his mom and selling her hearing aids. And I'm not. So like that wasn't the intention, but that's how it came across because I didn't have business systems to make sure those things didn't happen. Again, very traumatizing. Marketing kind of didn't work super well. I did clinics, I did seminars, but they didn't convert very well. And through all of that, I was losing sleep. I had a newborn baby. I was overstressed. I was drinking too much. I was overweight. It was bad news, not pleasant. I thought I'd made a really bad mistake. Luckily, as I said, I had hired help and I had hired coaches to help me get through this, and I turned it around. We shifted our pricing, we added membership models, we fine-tuned our marketing and changed the system so our conversions were more consistent. We re-engineered our staffing and our scheduling models so I wasn't driving for extended periods of time. We fine-tuned our standard operating procedures. And so by year 3, so that gap that I don't talk about between 2014 and 2017, by that point, we had figured it out. We were at $1 million and growing. We were profitable. We had team. We were adding services. I actually added vestibular, which I'll talk about later. And I was spending under 20 hours a week on patient care at that point, but it wasn't as easy as it's fun to make it seem on the internet. All right. So this is going to be valuable for anybody who is wanting to attract ideal patients. So these are going to be 3 ways that you can differentiate your practice and attract and retain ideal patients who are happy to pay for premium care and refer their friends. Would you like to have patients who are ideal and happy to pay for premium services and refer their friends? Of course, right? All of us would be. So here's the problem. The way that most of us try to differentiate our practice, we talk about how long we've been in business, our certifications, our training, our status, community recognitions, that we follow best practices, that we offer a wide range of products, that we're in network providers, that we do free testing. Line by line on those, like years in business, certification, specialized training, like frankly, most people don't care. That's the reality of that. It's like, it's great, it's good, and like kudos, but most people, that's not a decision point for most people. Best practice care is interesting because I do think that best practice care, once patients get into your clinic, that's a differentiator. But the problem is it's a pretty big lift to educate consumers before they come into your clinic about best practice care and help them understand that that should be a deciding factor in who they work with. So I definitely think it's important for retention. It's important for actually providing quality care. Once we start talking about products, that's innately going to be problematic because as soon as we talk about products, it becomes really easy to just like price shop, right? Because we are equating ourselves with the commodity, which is the hearing aid. And that hearing aid, they can go to Costco, they can go to your competition down the street, and they can compare, right? Being in network is good, but if we're talking about Medicare age patients, in most cases, we're talking about Medicare Advantage plans, which are managed care plans, which is a whole, can of worms that we won't go into too much, but suffice it to say, most of us would rather not be in managed care plans if we could avoid it. Is that fair? Like, would most of us prefer to opt out of managed care plans if we could? Probably, right? And then free testing and demos, the problem, yeah, right, totally. The problem with free testing and demos is, I don't think it's bad, but I think that promoting that as a differentiator slots us into the same category as the big box, as the chains, because that's what they're talking about is free testing and demos. And as soon as we equate ourselves with that, they start to also equate us with price competition, with price matching, and they start to commoditize this a little bit, and we're kind of doing it to ourselves, right? So these are all kind of problematic ways to differentiate our practice. I'm going to share a few case studies of some colleagues of mine who I think do a really good job of differentiating in more unique and interesting and creative and frankly effective ways. So I'm going to start with Robin Carson. Anybody know Robin? Robin is amazing. She's in Fort Worth. I actually did one of my AUD program rotations through a clinic that she worked in at the time. And Robin was the audiologist that inspired me to become a private practice audiologist. She just has a huge, huge heart. She loves her patients. So tip number one to differentiate, stop talking about hearing. Yeah, Carson's awesome. Stop talking about hearing and be you. Okay, so Robin is fun. She's joyful. She loves community. She's generous. So she does these like dog adoption days. Like you can even see they did like a Halloween dress up day with dogs, and the dogs, people would dress up their dogs, and they were doing adoptions. So that's something they do regularly. They do like Taco Tuesdays. They have like free beer and wine in their clinic. It's just her vibe. It's just who she is. And the people who are attracted to her would never leave her. Never. And it has nothing to do with price. It has nothing to do with product. It has everything to do with who she is, right? That's the differentiator, is who she is, which works for her because she is such a personality, right? Let's talk about another kind of case study like that. My friend Deanne. I'm sure somebody in here knows Deanne. Deanne's an amazing person. So Deanne is a philanthropist. She loves giving back. She loves doing missions. Yeah. Deanne's just awesome. And so a lot of what she does is around her mission work. Like if you go into her clinic in Longmont, Colorado, she has these pictures on the wall of her doing mission projects. And like this, I love this picture of her with that little boy, and it's stuff like that all over her walls. And if you're somebody who's mission oriented, or you like philanthropy, or you're like a big hearted person, you're going to resonate with that. And you're not going to say, yeah, she's amazing. And you're not going to say like, oh, but I could get it cheaper down the road. Like you're going to want to work. She's going to attract her type of people who are going to want to work with her because of who she is. So that's number one. Stop talking about hearing. Focus on what makes you you and lean into it. Number two, lead with your standout services. So if there are things that you do that are different than what everybody else is doing, and I mean really different, not just like you can say it's different, but actually really different, you should lead with that. So Heather Maliuk is a really awesome example of this. She is a musician. She's a classically trained musician, and she works with musicians. That's her thing. Her clinic, Soundcheck Audiology, it is technically a mobile practice, but it's a really unique niche mobile practice where she goes out to like orchestras, and she goes out to bands, and she works with like all the rock bands up in the Northeast. And she's just like the source for hearing care for musicians. So you can imagine that she doesn't need to market, because her referrals keep her busy, because she is the person. If you're a musician, she's who you work with. It's just not a question, because she is so highly specialized in that one thing, which I think is brilliant. And I think it's like, she never has to talk about hearing aids. She never has to talk about widgets. She just does her thing that she specializes in. So Jason Landecker is another really inspiring entrepreneurial audiologist. He's a really solid clinical audiologist. I was talking with him at ADA a few weeks ago, and he has like 7 clinics that do hearing at this point, but he has 2 clinics where they are highly specialized in tinnitus, hyperacusis, and misophonia. And they've actually separated those two business entities out, where his tinnitus clinic is separate from his hearing clinics, even though some of them share common spaces. And so because they're so specialized and they've done so much extra training and their team is so highly specialized and they have protocols that are so effective at helping these types of patients, they're booked out like 3 months. Like literally his biggest problem right now is that they have so many new cash pay, private pay patients that want to work with their practice that they don't know how to handle the volume. That's their problem. And that's like, I don't know about you, but I would take that problem. That is a high quality problem. Very good problem. So he is a really good example of, yes, they have hearing aid clinics. They have 7 of them, right? And those clinics do very well, but they largely do so well off the back of the fact that their physician referral sources trust them so much with the tinnitus and the hyperacusis patients that just spills over into their hearing clinics. So it's just a natural side effect of being so good at such a specific thing. So they lead with that, and that's what allows their practice to be so differentiated. And the third way is experience. We think a lot about what the outbound, like what we put out in our marketing is. And I know a lot of clinicians that say, oh, we're largely word of mouth. That's how we get our patients. Yeah, Jeff, I'm definitely going to tie this into mobile, and we're getting there. Trust me. Experience makes a difference. Okay. So when somebody comes into your clinic or has an experience with your practice that's actually unique, that's actually different, they're going to talk about it. So Ellie, I don't actually know Ellie, but she's got a huge social media following. She's got a TikTok channel that almost has 1 million followers. You can see their pictures of their clinic. They are like a vibe. So they've got this like youthful kind of aesthetic. They do a sound cafe in their clinic where they do like live demonstrations with like cafe sounds. They have an ear spa. They do a lot of marketing and content around ear cleanings. And then they have a big media presence. So their practice is actually really word of mouth because it's such an experience. And here's where we bring it around, because mobile audiology, especially if we really lean into what makes mobile audiology unique, is an experience that is unique, that's differentiated, and it causes natural intrinsic growth to happen. So this is Melissa Sharp. She's one of the students inside of my program. And you can see her clinic, First Coast Mobile Audiology in Florida. So Melissa joined the program after 7 years in business, and her problem was just that she was super inefficient with her time. And she was spending so much time traveling between appointments that she was barely able to see more than 4 patients a day. So once we streamlined that problem, now the problem is like, okay, now she's like dropping managed care. She was taking managed care. She's dropping it because she's getting busier. Her time and schedule is getting more efficient, so she can see more patients and she can justify doing that. So mobile audiology is absolutely a uniquely differentiated experience, which is why we're talking about it tonight. All right. So how do we successfully market efficiently without attracting problem patients? How many people have done marketing, paid marketing, that's attracted the types of patients that you don't want to have in your practice? I can raise my hand and say yes on that one personally. So most audiology practices were doing physician outreach, website, reputation management, direct mail, Google pay-per-click, newspaper, community sponsorships, that kind of stuff. And, I would say physician outreach is really the only one that isn't too problematic among these. The problem with physician outreach is just that it's super time consuming and it takes a long time to build. We're talking, months to years to build those physician referral relationships. But once they're developed, they keep giving back, right? But the website, the prospecting, all of that stuff can be problematic because it can create perceptions of our practice that aren't exactly desirable. So I just did a quick kind of Google search of hearing clinics kind of around me. And I'm not criticizing any of these practices, but the problem is they're all almost indistinguishable. Like if you put them all in the same color scheme, you almost couldn't tell a difference between any of these practices. They're all saying the same things. They're all doing the same things. They're all using stock photos. None of them are unique. They just all blend. And when you blend like that, then the only thing patients know to compare you on is price, right? That's the only reference point that they have to compare you on. The other problem we run into, especially with prospecting, is widget-based marketing. We're marketing hearing aids. And if we're trying to get away from commoditization, if we're trying to get away from price competition, then marketing hearing aids is not an effective way to do that, because again, we're saying this little thing is the solution, right? That's what we're telling the market. This little thing is the solution, and I'm just here to sell it to you. You're positioning yourself as a hearing aid salesperson. And then finally, if we're not careful, we can create marketing that's actually damaging to our brand image, that starts to look a little bit salesy, right? And maybe doesn't look as professional as we'd like to portray. Anybody in here read the book, The Pumpkin Plan? Can you say pumpkin in the chat if you've read The Pumpkin Plan? This book is like stellar. Everybody should read it. The concept of this book is the author, Mike Michalowicz, went to like a pumpkin orchard. Yeah. And he was like looking at all the pumpkins, but then he saw this like huge blue ribbon, huge pumpkin. And he talked to the farmer and he's like, how the heck did you grow this huge pumpkin? And the pumpkin farmer was telling him that he had taken the seeds from previous generations of big pumpkins, and every time other smaller pumpkins would start to grow, he'd take them out, and anytime weeds would start to grow, he'd take them out. And the point is, as we apply this to our business, we have to identify what our pumpkin is. What's the thing that we do better than anyone else? And as a mobile practice, hopefully that is provide really high quality concierge experiential care that's very convenient, right? So here's kind of I'll give you kind of the rundown of what happens in this book. As your practice grows, we want to attract ideal prospects and repel or push away not my pumpkin patients. And those are the patients that are price oriented. They are looking for the lowest price. They're looking for the widget. Their cost is kind of bottom line. For most of us, for me anyway, that's not my pumpkin. So I want to repel those types of patients. I don't want to attract them, right? We want to avoid new opportunities. This is the problem with entrepreneurial type of people, is we see all these bright and shinies and we want to chase them. But if we really want to grow a meaningful business, we need to focus on that one thing that we do super, super well. And then weed our garden of all the distractions. We want to focus our attention on our top clients, find what they like and do more of it, more of it, more of it, and then try to find more people like them so that we can keep doing that same thing for all the people that are like them. Oh yeah, Profit First is also a really good book. All of Mike Michalowicz's books are really good. So he's one of my favorite business authors, really good stuff. All right, so in my practice, this is my dream patient for a mobile practice. This is who I think we should be trying to attract. Someone who has a hearing loss that they're highly motivated to treat. Somebody that seeks advice from experts and prioritize quality care over gimmicks. Like they're not really fooled by the retail sales stuff. They want a customized solution that's tailored to their environment and lifestyle, and they recognize that as something that's important. They're willing and able to invest in a convenient and effective solution with an expert provider who they can rely on and trust. So they're like more relational rather than transactional, and they live in a social community with others who fit that same profile. That's who we're trying to attract. Now, the cool thing about marketing in a mobile audiology practice is that we get to do some things that traditional marketing doesn't do. For one thing, when we market in a mobile practice, we're branding and we're doing lead gen at the same time, and we're doing it in a prospect rich environment. Like think about a TV ad. A TV ad goes out to whatever, 250,000 people, and maybe 2% of those, if we're lucky, are the person we're trying to reach. We go into a senior living facility and there's 150 residents. 75 of those are probably prospects, and maybe 45 of those are really good prospects. So that's a prospect rich environment. We have low to no cost using the types of marketing that I'm going to talk about tonight. And we have a high predictable return on investment. We have the opportunity to be the very best in the world. When I say the best in the world, I don't mean the best in the whole wide world. I mean the best in your world that you're serving, which is your market, at being high touch concierge in home care. We can easily differentiate ourselves as a service. That's a really important distinguishment from big box chain and third party accepting competition. The reason we want to distinguish as a service is because it's separating us from the product, right? And then, a lot of people are like, oh, but I've got other mobile clinics in my market. Okay, but do you have other audiology practices in your market? The good thing about being so specialized is all you have to do is be better at being a mobile practice than the 2 other mobile practices that are in your area, right? As opposed to trying to be a better audiology practice than the 100 other audiology practices in your area. Does that make sense? Like you are playing in a smaller pool, which means it's a lot easier to be the best. So where's the best place to market a mobile practice? We want to go where there's a high concentration of individuals with hearing loss who value that white glove service and convenience and have the resources to afford it, right? So independent living, assisted living, if we just did those 2 things and we did them super well in a market that has enough of those types of facilities to support a practice, you'll do well. So I'm going to teach you guys the 2 ways that I teach my students in my program how to market in these facilities. And if you only did these 2 things, you would be fine. Okay, again, assuming you have enough of these types of facilities in your market to support the practice. So the first one is free hearing clinics. These are not, I'm going in and doing a clinic and I'm charging for X, Y, and Z. These are doing free services in as a clinic inside of a facility. So there's very low to no cost, just time. You're building rapport and trust in the community. You're networking with the residents. You're also networking with the staff. You're creating quick wins. So think about, like, sometimes my students will get frustrated if they're in a room and there's other residents in the room with them. But I actually think it's kind of cool. Like, think about if you have somebody come in and they have hearing aids on and they haven't been able to hear for months, and they give you their hearing aids and they just have plugged wax guards or something, and you fix it and you put them in their ears, and they're like, oh my God, what did you do? And now the heads start to turn and they're like, what happened? What did he do? Right? So you're creating these quick wins, and you're kind of like marketing your capacity and capability to make change, like on the spot, which is pretty powerful. One thing that I think is really important is we can pre-screen candidates to cut down on wasted appointments. So we can kind of pre-qualify and see who are going to be people that are ready to address their hearing and who aren't. And we can focus on those who are ready, or at least open to the conversation about treatment, so that we're not wasting time on kind of like tire kicker types of appointments, right? And then we can also schedule appointments on the spot. So that's the first way, hearing clinics. The second way is seminars and lunch and learns. And this one can feel a little bit more intimidating. I know a lot of people don't enjoy public speaking, but there's a lot of reasons that doing these types of events can be incredibly powerful as a marketing strategy. For one, you're establishing domain authority, which means that you are demonstrating your knowledge. You're demonstrating that you're an expert in this field by being in front of them and being able to field their questions and being able to be really competent and a good communicator. You're going to demonstrate your personality, your transparency, and your patient advocacy. One of the things I love doing in seminars is talking about all the things that people don't like about hearing aids. In fact, if you can actually, I don't know if you can see the screen, but I think this seminar in the bottom picture is something like why don't hearing aids work? Right? Because there is quite a bit of cynicism around hearing aids in the senior population with the people that I talk to. So that would come up on the screen and they just start laughing. But if I can talk about all the reasons why people are unsuccessful with hearing aids, acknowledge their objections, talk about the price of hearing aids, if I can have these conversations in a really transparent and open way where it's collaborative and I'm on their team, that gets a lot of that kind of trust built up before we even get into the consultation appointment. I love audience participation in these. So if we can get people involved in the conversation, that's huge. And then having a strong call to action at the end is going to be the thing that actually takes it from like, how many of you guys have done a seminar and at the end, everybody claps and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so informative. Thank you so much. And then they leave and nobody schedules anything. Nobody does anything. Anybody? Just me? That's incredibly common. And often it's because we don't have a strong call to action at the end. And we haven't structured it in a way that we're actually compelling people to continue that process of working with us. So I've got a couple of other little bonuses here for you guys, things that you can do inside facilities to make yourself more valuable, trusted resource that's going to get referrals. So in services and trainings for staff, it can be a really great way to build the collegial kind of rapport and build those referral relationships. So you have to think that these people, the nurses, the aides that are working in these facilities, they're working with people who have hearing loss all day and they don't really know anything about hearing loss. So if we can teach them about hearing loss, teach them about communication strategies, optimizing acoustics, assistive listening devices, safety with assistive listening devices, that's super valuable. That's like game changer. We can collaborate with kind of complementary service providers like home health. We can collaborate with captioned phone companies, teach hearing aid basics. I mean, every single patient that I fit with hearing aids, we were putting this daily use quick guide on their wall so that when the staff came in to help, they could just kind of go through the guide. Teaching nurses how to do otoscopy, like you would be surprised how many nurses don't really know what they're looking at when they look in an ear. Event sponsorships are another good way. Again, we're taking it out of the space of talking about hearing and hearing aids, and we're just making it more fun and we're building relationships. So sponsoring happy hours, holiday parties, social events, it's a really good way to just build relationships with people and come across as more human. Yeah. All right, a couple more marketing opportunities. So we want to be looking at senior service providers, right? So complementary professionals like geriatricians, home health, senior placement specialists, and other allied health professionals like PTs and that kind of thing that are coming into homes. And then health fairs are another good way to get in front of people. I find them actually a little bit less effective from a time to return on investment of time standpoint than the other marketing strategies, but I wouldn't turn them down. So the thing with health fairs is a lot of clinics that I talk to, they just go out to the health fairs and they have handouts. And they just give them flyers, they give them a brochure, they give them a business card. So yeah, that's not going to really do anything. They'll say, thanks for the information. I don't know if you've ever heard, I don't know if this is just in Texas, but we would call health fairs like senior trick-or-treating, because they just go around and fill up their little bags with pens and candy and whatever people were giving away and not really sign up for anything. So if you're doing video otoscopy, fall risk screenings, hearing aid checks, and giving them a reason to get engaged with you, it's going to start the conversation. Terrence said, hand out information sheets with space for insurance and doctors' names to set appointment. Yeah, for sure. Assuming that the insurance might be a variable, but for sure. Get connected with insurance companies that provide hearing aid benefits. Maybe, yeah, assuming you're an in-network provider. All right. What questions are there so far? Please put them in the chat if questions are coming up or thoughts. Mobile audiology is different than a brick and mortar practice. It's not for everybody, 100% not for everybody. Here are some kind of considerations to determine if it's right for you if you're not already doing it. So if you're an employee, which I know there are several of y'all in here that are employees right now, transitioning from employee to launching a practice, do you have the desire to be a practice owner? That's a big one. One of the questions I often ask when I'm having conversations with people is why do you want to be a business owner? Right? You want to be really clear on that. Are you willing to do boots on the ground marketing and develop a program? Do you enjoy serving seniors? I know there's one or two people in the group tonight that prefer pediatrics, and that's cool. The type of program we're talking about tonight is definitely more seniors, and you really want to know that you enjoy serving seniors. And then do you have business experience, sales, marketing, business operations? I had a couple of questions come through. Rachel said, why did you choose a bundled model? Was unbundled unsuccessful, or did you not try it? Great question. So I was not exclusively bundled, but from a psychology standpoint, I like to start in most cases with bundled. This is like, there's nuance here, right? But I generally like to start with bundled because I know that when somebody has service included that they've already paid for, they're more likely to utilize the service, which means they're more likely to be satisfied patients. And I know in my experience, when we unbundle, sometimes people get a little bit crotchy that they have to pay for follow-up care, especially depending on how that was communicated to them, or they just avoid follow-up care. So I would prefer, for one, it's better for cash flow for me. So it's a better deal for the audiology clinic. And then two, I find that patient outcomes tended to be better in my experience with my bundled patients, but I still had unbundled options for a variety of reasons. Got certified as a dementia provider and no senior administrator will say no to your seminar. Yeah, for sure. Talking about brain health is a super effective thing to talk about. Elizabeth and Brandy are talking about wanting to be practice owners, but not a big clinic, which is, when we talk about a dream practice, this is what I'm talking about. Knowing what you want is super critical. So not just building something because it seems like it's cool because it's big. That's what I did, and that's how I got myself in trouble. So know what you want going in, for sure. Eyes wide open. Should you add mobile? Do you want to grow without adding new run or CapEx? Do you know somebody in your team that would lead it? And are you willing to develop the program that works cohesively? Pros and cons. Benefits of a mobile practice: low startup cost. You can serve a large area without multiple offices. You have a uniquely differentiated service. You are working with a population who is at risk and they need ethical best practice providers. You have a captive audience. So like we talked about, marketing is a little bit more effective and easy. Excellent word of mouth growth. If you change somebody's life and then they're sitting at the dining table and having a conversation and they haven't been able to have a conversation for the past 2 years, everybody's going to be asking who they worked with and what they did. Low marketing costs. You can operate out of network without competitive threats. You get to see more challenging and interesting cases. And I think it's kind of cool treating hearing loss in the environment and actually being able to demonstrate better hearing in the place that they live. Downsides: it is time intensive, especially if it's not structured well. Especially if you're in assisted facilities, a lot of times your patients are on their last set of hearing aids, so you're not going to have as many repeat patients. You've got cognitive and physical limitations to deal with. You have complexity of dealing with seniors who might need family support. Yeah, Jeff, that's actually a good point. That, I mean, in my case, I wouldn't go to an assisted facility and see a hearing consultation without somebody present physically or on the phone. And that was a lesson that I learned after I had those couple of bad experiences I talked about earlier. You do have to have good organizational skills. And then depending on you, that geriatric patient base might be a good thing or it might be a bad thing. I'm actually going to give you guys this. So if you're somebody who's thinking about, doing mobile, I'm going to share this territory analysis tool. It's going to be in the handout section by the chat. Yeah. So this is something you can use to actually determine how far am I willing to drive? What does that radius look like? And then do the research and determine how many facilities are there, how many senior community centers are there, how many geriatric physicians are there, to just kind of get a sense of what the opportunity is. And then after this, if you email me, I'll send you a spreadsheet that actually estimates the return on investment of a mobile audiology practice based on this research that you do here. Rachel asked about low income and Medicaid. It's something that we would do more on a philanthropy basis than on a primary business model basis. Yeah. There are practices that do, nonprofit. There are practices that do like low income Medicaid, but I tend to find that quality of care, it's kind of like managed care. Like, it's just hard to provide the quality of care that I believe in to those patients, unfortunately. All right. So for those of you thinking about this, you might be this person over on the left who's like, I have this sense of what I want to do, but there's all of these questions and uncertainties between where I am and where I want to be. And a lot of people that I talk to have a lot of the same questions and a lot of the same concerns especially if you're striking out on your own for the first time. How do I know if it'll work? How do I know if people will pay what I'm asking for? It's you, you're on the left. Yeah, so I mean, these are common questions and concerns that I have conversations with people about every day. So that's why I built this training program. I built a program that I wish I would have had when I started my practice, which is everything that I've learned in a plug and play business program. So the way that I set this program up is basically to be a roadmap from not having anything at all to launching and growing the practice. Now, the cool thing is for those of you who already have mobile practices, I do have a couple of clients in the program right now that already had existing practices that needed a lift. They wanted to grow it, they wanted to expand it, or they wanted to maybe systematize it and make it work better. And this program has also been really effective for them. Like I talked about, Melissa just dropped her last managed care program a couple weeks ago, and she's been in practice for 7 years. The way that the program is structured is really pretty streamlined based on where you are in the growth stage of starting the practice. So we start with identifying the business model, then we set up the marketing plan, and then finally the staffing and scheduling, especially the staffing part. But scheduling, you got to nail that at the beginning. Staffing might be down the road, but it's important to know how to appropriately staff a practice, because like I said, personal experience, if you staff it wrong, it can really be a thorn in your side. So I'm just going to kind of walk through what I have in the program, and then we'll use the last few minutes to kind of answer questions and get ideas and that kind of thing. So the first thing that we talk about is business model. So we've got training videos, worksheets, templates, checklists. We want to identify what is that dream practice. So like, Brandy might not want to grow a huge practice, but somebody else might want to have, an entire state that they're serving. Those are two very different objectives, right? How do we reverse engineer that and actually build it? How do we plan that and set goals in an incremental way so we can grow it systematically? KPI tracking, this is something that I see as a huge deficit in most practices. And if you can start tracking KPIs at the beginning, you're going to be much more successful, because what gets measured gets managed. Building the model is, I feel like, one of the biggest question marks that people have, and even people that already have practices are like, the business model is the pain point. So like, how do I do my pricing? How do I separate products from services, or do I separate products from services? How do I make sure that when I'm going out and providing care, I'm getting paid, but I'm doing it in a way that my patients feel like it's fair and they understand that we're on the same page and we're providing the care that they expect for us to provide. Legal entity. So if you already have a practice, should you set up your mobile practice as a separate LLC? Should it be under the same business? This is something we have frameworks to make decisions around. And finally, should you participate in insurance? Again, there is not a black and white. There's not a correct answer here, but there's decision frameworks that you can use to make an educated decision. And then setting up vendors, getting all your order forms, getting your industry contacts. One of the things that I share is vetted vendors, people who I know and trust and have worked with, companies that I know and trust that I've worked with, so that you're not having to like try a bunch of companies and do trial and error. Yeah. Terrence said, if money's the driving force, you'll lose. Have to be patient. Passion. Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you are coming from a place of alignment, then the money happens. It just works out. Right. But if you're coming from a place of money, then you are going to have problems. Absolutely. 100% agree. Marketing is one of the other big pain points that I see in these types of practices, because people have a sense of what they want to do, but they're not able to connect the dots and actually take like a clinic or a seminar and turn them into hearing consultations of people who are ready to move forward with care. So inside the program, we talk about territory analysis. How do we actually identify where I want to serve and then break that up into chunks so that I'm not driving all over the place all the time? How do I do facility outreach? Because frankly, facilities are fickle, and trying to get contacts in the facilities can be challenging. And so we've got kind of workflows around that. So scripting around that, email templates around that, outreach workflows, tracking your marketing events, because I actually found in my practice that if we talk about like KPIs, you got lead indicators and lag indicators. Indicators are like, if I do these things, then I know what will happen. Lag indicators are like revenue. That's what happens at the end of everything. For me, the biggest lead indicator was if I knew how many clinics I had scheduled and how many seminars I had scheduled in a given month, I could pretty much estimate how many consultations I'd have. And then I also knew what our conversion was. So I pretty much knew how many patients we would have moving forward with treatment plans. So we're going to track that. So we have those systems. I've got everything built out around how to do a hearing clinic, training you on how to actually convert those people into appointments, how to market it inside the facility, how to make sure the facility is marketing it to the patients and getting the families involved. And then I'm actually currently right now building out some automated follow-up campaigns. So for the people that you see at a clinic who, for example, fail their hearing screening but aren't ready to move forward yet, we're going to have automated follow-up marketing systems so that we stay on their radar. And with a signature seminar, that's a point of fear for a lot of people. We've got scripts, we've got the marketing, we have training on how to actually convert people. And then so that you can build your own workshops, we also have training around that so that you can, want to come up with a hearing loss and dementia presentation or a tinnitus presentation, you can build those. And then also resources for the facilities like falls risk, in-service trainings, cheat sheets, that kind of thing. And then we have staffing and scheduling. So block scheduling is huge, and I teach how to use block scheduling where it corresponds with your territories so that you're servicing certain territories in a way and it's showing up on your schedule so that especially if you have staff that's scheduling things for you, they know what to do, you know where you're going to be, and you're not spending all of your day just looking out the windshield. You're being efficient and using your time effectively. Then we're going to teach you how to systematize your business. This is something that almost no practice owner does, but if you do it, it gives you the freedom to go on vacation, it gives you the freedom to work if you want to, or hire people in your place if you don't want to. It gives you that flexibility, but if you don't have systems built out in your business, you can't do it. It's always relying on you, and you always have to be there, which is a bad place to be as a business owner. So I teach you a system for building systems, how to build your expert systems. There's 5 business pillars, and we teach you about those pillars and how they work and the purpose of them, and then how to create standard operating procedures. And then staffing. Staffing is like huge, huge, huge. When you start growing and scaling this business model, there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. I've done both. So you want to do it right, because it can really be expensive and stressful. And, when we hire people, we're theoretically trying to make our business simpler. We're trying to make our life easier because we're trying to take things off our plate, and we're trying to at least maintain profitability. What happens for most people is we hire somebody and now we've got more complexity and less profit, which is the opposite of what we were going for. So I have, over the years, and especially as I've become a consultant, I've spent a lot of money on programs. I buy these $1,000 to $3,000 programs that teach me how to do something that I don't know how to do in my business. Most of them are just like recorded modules and maybe some worksheets. Most of them don't have coaching. And all the research on like course outcome success shows that coaching is key. If you don't have coaching and accountability, they just really don't work very well. You might get something out of it, but it's not going to be a game changer. So I'm committed to not just having a course. I'm committed to the coaching part because, and I can see it in my program, the people that do the coaching succeed. The people that don't do the coaching fall off. So we've got live coaching calls. They're territory exclusive. So that might mean that there might already be somebody in the program that's in your territory, and we might not be able to let you in at this point. But it is territory exclusive so that you're not having to, so you're not like competing with other people in the program. You've got all the previous coaching calls recorded. We do asynchronous coaching, which I'll show you what that means in a minute, and then collaboration with other members, because there are people in there that have really valuable experience. So you can see we're actually in a private Facebook group for the coaching program. I have some people that didn't even have a Facebook before this. They just set up a Facebook just so they could use this group so they can message. It's just a nice way because we can go back and see all those historical comments and see what conversations we've had. So anytime somebody in my group has a question, they post it and I generally answer. I'm kind of bad. I generally answer within a couple of minutes, but if not, I normally answer at least within 24 hours. So you can see, we've got all kinds of questions coming through here. And on a lot of these, really good conversations end up happening between all the members in the group. Got somebody I know on here. Just a couple of testimonials. Sadaf is one that she's my first from scratch person to launch her practice. Joe is another person in my group that he's recently launched his practice. So we've been small but mighty, and we're starting to get some success stories, which is really cool to see. Got some bonuses. We are doing some cool new stuff. So we are partnering with Oaktree, and Oaktree is actually, if you haven't been to their site, they've actually built out a mobile practice section on their site now. They've built out a full checklist of all the equipment that you need for a mobile audiology practice. And they've given a really generous 15% discount to folks that are in the group. So if you're starting from scratch, that's over $200 of savings on the initial equipment that you need to stock your bag, and then all future supplies. Because you're in my program, you get access to that really aggressive pricing, which is awesome because you're going to order from Oaktree a lot. And then the second one, this one's a really big one. Medrex has agreed to partner with us, and they do diagnostic equipment. I used the Ultimate Office combination in my practice the entire time I was in practice. So from 2014 to 2021, I really like the systems. Their RealEar system will work with all the automated RealEar. So like with Phonak and Oticon and Resound and those that have the automatic RealEar, Medrex works with those. And if you do that Ultimate Office combination, it's a $10,680 system, and you can get it for $8,500. So it's over $2,000 of savings. It's a really good deal. Really big savings. Very grateful to Medrex for doing that. So